Okay, so the internet is on fire right now with a million articles and podcasts and YouTube videos and anything else under the sun that the Philadelphia Eagles should bench Jalen Hurts and start Tanner McKee. We can just see all this, right? Tanner McKee questions are worth asking for Eagles with Hurts imploding. Eagles, Jalen Hurts hits his low point, which begs the question, should he be benched for Tanner McKee? Eagles linked to new quarterback amid Jalen Hurts' struggles. Is it time for the Eagles to bench Jalen Hurts for Tanner McKee? Eagles should have started Tanner McKee to open up the second half versus the Chargers. And on and on and on and on and on it goes. I've talked a lot about this over these last few days, Jalen Hurts, etc., and got to give a shout out to the comment section. This is the power of reading the comments, where S.Bird, a very loyal and passionate Eagles fan, had this to say. I mean, you could see I took a screenshot 12 seconds ago, like as soon as I read it, and I was like, oh my gosh, I got to make a video about this because this is crazy. If I'm Jalen and they want to bench me, I'm restructuring right now and getting a release, and I'm signing with the Colts. Steichen would give anything for Jalen right now. And that is pretty wild. Now, I don't know if, there's all different ways to do something like that in a way where the Eagles get still something in return. I don't know if it needs to be like a restructure and a release or there's a trade. Like, Harry Roseman is Harry Roseman, so there's always a way to do something. And now, I want to be clear, as I think I've been very clear in all my other videos that I've made. I am 1,000% not calling for the Eagles to bench Jalen Hurts, to trade Jalen Hurts. Like, none of that. My record is spotless on Jalen Hurts, okay? But I did want to think out loud here. I did want to unpack something like this because the symmetry is insane. Where if Tanner McKee is legit, if Tanner McKee is as great as people hope and think he is, and I confess, watching him play in preseason, which is preseason, and watching the game that he had, I think what was it, against the Giants? I forget exactly when it was. You're like, man, can this guy play? Like, who? Like, you're like, is Tanner McKee the truth? He's 6'6", he's big and strong, 230, right? Like, he is that prototypical quarterback. And I've used him, ironically, as a reference point, when talking about like Shedeur Sanders and some of these other quarterbacks, where I'm like, dude, look where Tanner McKee was drafted in the 6th round. Look what he did in preseason. Look what he did in a regular season game. And yet nobody was freaking out saying Tanner McKee should have been drafted number 1 overall. Like, nobody was like having any of these types of freakouts. And now, ironically, here we are. People are all like, put in Tanner McKee. And I'm sure Tanner McKee is a more natural, pure thrower of the ball than, say, Jalen Hurts, right? Which I think that's probably fair to say. And so you would say, like, hey, he could get the ball to the receivers in ways that Jalen Hurts might not be able to do. But again, to be very clear, that does not mean that he's a better quarterback. That does not mean that he can run an offense at the highest level. It does not mean that he can step up and do what Jalen Hurts has consistently done throughout the entire course of his career. So let's not get any of this stuff twisted. Would some receivers actually prefer a Tanner McKee type thing? Yeah, I'm sure lots of receivers would. Like they want a Joe Burrow. They want a Matthew Stafford, a Sam Darnold even, right? Like, they want that because they just know this guy's just going to let it rip and he's going to throw, balls all over the field and let's, here we go, right? Like, that is what a wide receiver, wants. They rather play, I can guarantee you, majority of receivers, especially if they're not trying to think about winning and they're just thinking about, like, what's fun? How do I get the best out of this? It's like, they would rather pick and play for Joe Burrow and Matthew Stafford than even Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts. Like, They just want someone who's just going to be able to let it rip all over the field, who's going to just be the foundation of what makes them special, is just being a pure pocket passer and letting it rip, right? Like, that is what a receiver is going to want. Nothing to do about winning, not saying that you have a better chance to win with, that you have, with Josh Allen or someone else, like, nothing to do with that. Just strictly, hey, someone's throwing me the ball, what's up, right? People want to play with Tom Brady, right? And it makes sense. And so, you have a Tanner McKee there. And so the reality is, and this is what I had said about a month or so ago, because I don't mean to do a victory lap, but I foresaw this coming. And this is, I brought it up loosely before, but it bears repeating again right now, where I said, if the Eagles struggle, there will absolutely be calls to start Tanner McKee. And then that Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni's, they don't have security, not as much as they think. And this really highlights it. And it's not because I'm necessarily calling for it, because I'm not, but I saw what Tanner McKee did, and I'm human, and I go, what would this look like? And again, I can't express this enough. Like, it's not something that I'm calling for, but I'm in touch with my own emotions. And so I know how a lot of other people think, and I know how, the media operates and how other fans operate. I've been around the block once or twice, and again, this is evidence of that. So other people are thinking like, what if? And so my whole thing is like, well, here's the thing. Howie Roseman knows what he has in Tanner McKee. The coaching staff knows what he has in Tanner McKee. They know, is he legit or not? Is he just like kind of like, yeah, he's a quarterback, right? Like, he can have some success. He's a little bit of this, a little bit of that, but like, he's not good enough where you're going to bench Jalen Hurts and start Tanner McKee now, right? Like, because if he really was great, you'd know it. You'd have conversations about it. Although, to be fair, Colin would always say, Colin Cowherd, that is, if you don't know, that everyone knew that Patrick Mahomes was going to be great, that you couldn't keep it, in training camp. Like, everyone just knew. And, John Middlecoff kind of then went on and said in separate podcasts that, like, it was really easy for the Chiefs to sit Mahomes for that year, even though everybody was like, he's amazing, because Alex Smith was winning, and it was Andy Reid, and they were going to the playoffs. Like, so it's a lot easier to kind of squash any of that. Whereas if they were the Browns or something, and like they were failing and losing, everybody would be chanting, bring in Mahomes. But then, and I forget who it was an offensive lineman who played with the Kansas City Chiefs, who was there with Patrick Mahomes when he first got there, and he goes, all those stories about everyone saying, oh, Mahomes is going to be amazing, and everyone just knew. He was like, that's nonsense. He goes, that's not real. He goes, that's not what happened. Shout out Travis O'Shea, who sent me that link. I don't know where it is right now, and I'm not going to waste time trying to find it. But he was just like, that's just not the story. So, like, who really knows? But I am confident that Andy Reid and, ownership, management, GM, anyone else that's like there to evaluate, like, what do we have here in Mahomes? They were pretty confident, right? Even if it wasn't like everyone screaming, in terms of inside that locker room, Mahomes. But I am confident that, like, Harry Roseman is going to have an idea. Nick Sirianni, Kevin Patul, like a lot of these other guys. And that is then what, I won't name their names right now, but there's a bunch of other sports personalities in Philadelphia that were referenced in the past that were like, there's a lot of coaches and people in the building that, don't want Jalen Hurts or something. And, like, this is where Harry Roseman is pretty ruthless. And if Tanner McKee is the truth, then they would move on from Jalen Hurts, because it's all about winning. And it's like, and the thing is that this is the best possible out, because the Colts absolutely positively need a quarterback. No question about it. Shane Steichen literally got to a Super Bowl with Jalen Hurts, and Jalen Hurts had his best year with Shane Steichen. He would want to go there. And it's just the exact symmetry of what happened with Carson Wentz getting traded to the Colts to go with his offensive coordinator, who he had the best year of his career, his MVP level year. And both Carson lost out on the MVP because he got injured. I think he still should have had the MVP. I think Manning ended up getting it, but I still think Carson Wentz had the better argument for it, even though he got injured and didn't finish out the season. And I think Jalen Hurts also had the better argument, even though he got, knocked out, and then, it went to Mahomes. But that doesn't matter. But they both had MVP level seasons that then were kind of taken away from them just because of injuries, right? The injury gods, the football gods, with coordinators that they played their best. Those coordinators then got head coaching jobs in Indianapolis. Then you got a quarterback in waiting. And the reality is that the Eagles didn't want that with Jalen Hurts. They wanted Carson Wentz. That's why they fired Doug Peterson. They wanted to keep Carson Wentz. Some people try to debate that. You know, I guess we'll never truly know, but that's what I believe. Like, they were like, yeah, we're trading Carson Wentz. We're starting Jalen. Let's go. I don't really feel like that was 100% the plan. And I think if the Eagles didn't win the Super Bowl last year, let's say they lost to the Rams, totally possible, right? Obviously possible. They could have lost to the Packers, you know, a little bit harder, and losing to the Commanders seems a little impossible, and losing to the Chiefs seems a little impossible. But let's just say they lost to the Rams. And then they had this season right now. I mean, Sirianni would be getting fired, and Jalen Hurts, like now there would be like some interesting stuff where it's like, yeah, they would maybe start Tanner McKee, like things would just get kind of silly kind of quickly. But they won the Super Bowl. Jalen Hurts, the MVP. Even how they started this season, the success that they've had, and the reality is that all this gets reset because in 2023 they had their collapse, and I don't even think it was a collapse. The team just wasn't as good as everyone tried to pretend it was. They were able to win some games, but like I don't think it was a collapse. They just held on as long as they could, and then they get rocked in the playoffs. And now there was like real energy and momentum to be like, Sirianni's going to get fired, because now you start the next season and it's like things don't look that great. People are concerned about Jalen Hurts. Like you're already starting to feel it. But then they win the Super Bowl, and it's just like, yeah, they won the Super Bowl, but like it's very much believed as like, well, it was the team, it was the roster, it was the O-line, the defense. Like, yeah, Jalen Hurts played great. Yeah, Jalen Hurts was the MVP, but like, that's not really who he is, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And we've all seen the takes all, for years now. And listen, the media goes above and beyond in a lot of these conversations, no doubt about it. But they do have the finger on the pulse of the conversations, not only publicly, but then also like what the teams are looking for. Say what you will about, NFL lot, the Orlovskis, the Stephen A's, the Collins and whatnot. Like, they are connected. They are having conversations. Colin's always going out for drinks and steaks with, GMs and stuff, right? And owners. Like, Colin is connected. And so you have sources. You're going to have some of these conversations. And so, and they all want to hedge their bets as well, right? They all don't want to look foolish. No one wants to come out here and say, I think Jalen Hurts is not that good of a quarterback, and then only to have the next year they win the Super Bowl and they're an MVP, and you're like, hey, Jalen Hurts is a great quarterback. He's the best. He's top. Like, they're all trying to hedge their bets, and so they're only going to say that not only because they believe it and they feel it, but then they also are reaching out to other people within the NFL ecosystem. That's like, they're like, is there truth to this? Are you seeing what I'm seeing? And so it kind of takes a story of its own. And so that's where then I lean back and just say, like, I don't have the inside sources. I don't have the information. I only know what I know. I only know what I watch and have seen from Jalen Hurts and the Eagles franchise over these years. I have no idea how truly great Tanner McKee is. We saw him in such a limited sample size. I have no idea what he does in the film room. I have no idea the relationship he has with coaching. I have no idea truly what he looks in practice, etc., like all that stuff. None of us do. We're not connected. And we can hear whispers from this guy or that guy. And it's just like, it's always tough because especially when you're talking about local media, and especially when you're talking about a couple guys that are trying to branch off on their own and start their own thing, like you see this all the time, that they like really rely on some of these like really intense, like, it's like the definition of clickbait, right? Like, it really is kind of like, trade Jalen Hurts to the Dallas Cowboys, blah, blah, blah. We should get Dak. And you're just like, what are you talking about right now? And it's just like, and you're like, well, he knows. He played football. He's been in the NFL. He was in the NFL for years. He actually won a Super Bowl with the Rams back in 19. And you're just like, And you're like, yeah. There's like, well, he's been connected to the Eagles franchise for decades. You know, if he's saying this, there's truth to it. And it's just, you're like, yeah, maybe if everyone had grounded motives, and if people weren't all just trying to eat and pay their rent and you know and you know, make a living, it's like, sure. But it just becomes a lot harder to trust. And so that's why I'm just like, okay, well then who do I trust? Who do I trust is not trying to get me just to watch your video, get me to just read your story, get me to subscribe and believe what you're saying is correct now, etc., etc. And it's just like, well, it's going to be Howie Roseman, right? And no one, he doesn't have an ulterior motive. A.J. Brown does. Devontae Smith does. Saquon Barkley does. Lane Johnson does. All they do. And as they should. It's their own motives. It's their own careers, their own life, etc., etc. But like, Howie Roseman is just like, I just need to make this team the best I possibly can. I owe nothing to anyone. If my conclusion is that we happen to draft Tanner McKee and he actually is a legit quarterback, he is for real, then that's what we're going to do, right? Like, that's just that's the business. Howie Roseman is ruthless. And, you know, so it's just like, you just sit back and say, okay, if that's the move they make, then that's the move they make. But if they don't, well, then it should kind of tell you, well, maybe Tanner McKee isn't as great as everyone wants to believe he is. And the reality is that I'd love to see Tanner McKee play with this Philadelphia Eagles because I'm a football junkie. I'd love to see what Mahomes looks like. I'd like to see what Jalen looks like with the Kansas City Chiefs in 2018. I'm like, I love to do the rearrange. Let's see what Josh Allen looks like. What about Joe Burrow with the 2019 Chiefs? The Rams in 2021, I'd put Josh Allen there. You know, Josh Allen now with this Rams team. Put Stafford with this Bills team. Like, so I love all that stuff. Some people really struggle with those types of things. They don't like the hypotheticals. I love it. So as someone who just loves football and just loves a variety of play, it's like, I'd love to see Tanner McKee play. I made the joke before the season started. I was like, I wish it was kind of like baseball a little bit, where it was like you get to see this starter and that starter and that starter, because it's like, I'd love to see it. I'd absolutely love to see it. And again, I had got no predictions in any direction. My gut tells me that Tanner McKee is, I don't know, kind of legit. And by legit, I don't mean like, he's absolutely this top 5 quarterback. If they put him on the Eagles, this team is going to be so much better, and they're going to start winning, and it's going to be great, and it's going to be like the next Tom Brady, right? He's like the Drake May right now of the Patriots. Like, I'm not saying that either, but based on what I saw, the way he executed, the types of throws that he was making, I'm like, there's definitely not nothing there. But that's the thing. If there's not nothing there, is there enough for someone like Howie Roseman? And he has an exit ramp. Like, that's the thing. He can safely pass on Jalen and say, buddy, we love you. We're going to retire your jersey. You won the Super Bowl, you know, like all this stuff. You are amazing. And we do have to move on right now. And we are sorry. But 1, we paid you a ton of money. 2, we helped support you get a Super Bowl. It's not just you. You were a contributor, but like, Josh Allen didn't, Lamar didn't, Burrow didn't, like, you know, none of these guys are doing it. Stafford and Detroit didn't. Like, we were a big reason why you were able to get to 2 Super Bowls and be the Super Bowl MVP, right? You got enshrined because of it. And now we're going to give you to Shane Steichen in the Indianapolis Colts. The coach who brought the best out of you. Like, this is legit. This is as good as it gets, man. This is as good as it gets. We're not shipping you off to the Las Vegas Raiders right now. We're gonna put you with Chip Kelly. Sorry, bud. Obviously, I know Chip Kelly's been fired, but it's just like, they're not doing that. So it's just like, people couldn't even be angry at it. Like, even people who are super defenders and believers in Jalen Hurts, they couldn't even fully rip the Eagles. I'm sure they would still get criticism to a degree because, like, you know, you're always gonna have a little bit of that. But like, I don't think people would really see it as too harsh, because it's just like, where he would go. It's like, you're going to the Indianapolis Colts with Shane Steichen, where you can win, where they have a great roster. I mean, when Daniel Jones was healthy, they were looking like a true top team in the NFL. They were scoring more points than the undefeated Patriots and the 2018 Chiefs. Like, they were unbelievable. And nobody thought Daniel Jones was worth anything. And now you're bringing in a Super Bowl winning MVP with a history together. I know a lot of Eagles fans were praying that the Colts were going to keep losing, that they were going to fire Shane Steichen, and that the Eagles could be like, yes, come back, Shane, come back. And that obviously didn't happen. And now Shane Steichen is probably going to be, you know, he's going to be rooted with the Colts for, things happen fast in the NFL, but like 3 years, 4 years, who really knows? It's new ownership, newish ownership, because obviously the daughters and whatnot, but like he offers a sustainability. He showed what he can do, even when you just give him a semblance of a good enough quarterback. So he's proved his worth. So it's like he's not going anywhere anytime soon. So I don't know. It is frustrating because I do wish, and like I said, I say this from a football junkie, the guy who wants to put Lamar with the Chiefs and Josh Allen with the Rams. Like, there's nothing to do with Jalen Hurts, but I do wish it was easier to be like, we're gonna have Tanner McKee play for a quarter, for a half, for a game, whatever it is, and it not be this big thing, only just because like I'd love to see it. I'd love to see what it looks like. Like that's it. And again, I'll just emphasize that one more time, that it has nothing to do with Jalen Hurts. I absolutely positively would love to see Jalen Hurts with the Chiefs, with the Rams, with the Bills, all these other teams. Like, absolutely. Everyone keeps saying like Dak Prescott would be great with the Eagles. He would have won a Super Bowl last year. I'd love to throw Dak Prescott on the Eagles team, throw him in the Super Bowl against the Kansas City Chiefs. I'd love to see what he looks like. I'd love to see what he does in the Rams in the snowstorm. I'd love to see it. Sign me up. Put Dak on this team going up against the Los Angeles Rams in a blizzard. I'd love to see it. Again, sign me up for that right now. So that's why I just want to emphasize, nothing to do with Jalen Hurts' talent level, my belief in him, or anything like that. I don't think I could be any clearer than that. But I'll just stand by this. And I'll end here. If Tanner McKee is legit, he would be impressing people right now. And Harry Roseman would know it. The other coaches would know it. The players would even know it. You would know it. You would feel it. You would sense it. You would know it. And if it was enough to be like, we actually do kind of have to maybe move on from Jalen Hurts, I do think that is a legitimate path. Obviously not this year, but, moving forward. That is a legitimate path that actually makes it a lot cleaner and a lot easier. There'll have to be some negotiating. Maybe there will be needing to be like a restructuring and a release, or somehow doing a trade again. That's up to Howie. The Colts also, they gave up 2 first rounds, so it's like I don't even know what they could, what they necessarily have to offer, et cetera, their financial situation. But like I just, where there's a will, there's a way. Because then I was also reading that they were like, no, if anything, the Eagles are going to flip Tanner McKee. They're going to try to, because people want him. And so, like, the Colts even would even want, like, a Tanner McKee, because they need a quarterback potentially. Daniel Jones might not be in I think the math, he definitely wouldn't be ready by next season. Maybe he would. I don't know. I'd have to think about that. That's the thing, right? There's lots of teams that are kind of like, well, we need a quarterback. We need someone, and we're not interested in drafting someone right now. Like, we'll take a Tanner McKee. There's plenty of teams that could do with a Tanner McKee. The Las Vegas Raiders, the Indianapolis Colts, and so like that's potentially also what Harry Roseman would do. But there would be absolute devastating consequences if Harry Roseman trades Tanner McKee. Tanner McKee has a ton of success, and the Eagles are still struggling with the issues that they believe they have with Jalen Hurts and this offense. And they have to now even move on from A.J. Brown, and it's like, because A.J. Brown's unhappy, and now you kept Jalen Hurts, and you moved on from Tanner McKee, and now Tanner McKee is balling with Shane Steichen and the Colts, and you're just like, oh, this didn't work out well. And because then there's the other way where it's like, okay, you move on from Jalen Hurts, you keep Tanner McKee. A.J. Brown is now happy because he's getting fed the ball, and he's like, finally, I'm getting all the yards I want, even though he's already getting the yards that he wants. This can take some turns. I'll just say that. This can take some turns. I predicted this being a thing when nobody was talking about it. When this was not even remotely on the radar. Not even remotely on the radar. I was talking about this by like March and April. Like immediately, essentially the immediate aftermath of the Eagles winning the Super Bowl. I was like, if it doesn't look as great as it did last year, there will be heat for Sirianni and Hurts. And there will be energy behind Tanner McKee. And that is what we're seeing. And so I'm making another claim that S. Bird, shout out to him for him making, for her, I think actually, him or her, whoever, I apologize. is making me think that. And I'm like, this would be the way. This would absolutely positively be the way. And I do genuinely believe that it is a legitimate possibility as long as Tanner McKee is actually like, Harry Roseman's like, Tanner McKee is, there's something there. As long as there's something there, that's everything. That becomes everything. Because there are serious consequences at play here. So, that's all I got right now. It's drama, man. It's intense. It's the way it works. And the reality is if it did happen, again, not making any predictions, not making any wishes, doesn't matter to me. I'll talk about it either way. It's like that's just football. And everybody would accept it too, because if the Eagles moved on from Jalen Hurts and all the Jalen Hurts defenders who are Eagles fans, and Tanner McKee goes in there and he wins and he's looking great, they would be like, Tanner McKee's my guy, yeah, whatever, right? And all the people that were like, I told you Jalen Hurts was bad and not good enough and home back to Eagles. And the Eagles fans would be like, we won a Super Bowl with Jalen Hurts and now we're winning with Tanner McKee. Cry about it, right? We're like, whatever. Jalen Hurts is having success with whoever. Like it would just be like, who cares? Whatever, right? They're just like, whatever. It really does become a whatever type situation. And that's how fast it happens. That's how fast it happens. I think it's also, keep in mind just the age of some of these quarterbacks, where I don't think Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, and Lamar Jackson, and Jalen Hurts for that matter, are all going to age particularly well. I do not think so. They take a lot of contact. You can see Jalen Hurts really does not want to take hits anymore. And that is as clear as day. He does not want it. 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 And it's just like, it does hurt him a little bit. Lamar doesn't want it either. And it does hurt him. And Josh Allen's body is going to fail on him. Like the amount of hits that he takes, it's just not going to be great. Mahomes, the argument that he's already losing a step a little bit. Like, these quarterbacks are not going to look great at 33, 34, 35. And again, Jalen Hurts obviously has some time under his belt. I'm not acting like Jalen Hurts is 32 years old right now, but it's all the things that Harry Roseman is going to consider and look at and be like, all right, did we get the max out of Jalen Hurts? Is he a lot closer to the decline than not? Just, it's tough. There's just so much to evaluate and consider, especially when you run the literal Philadelphia Eagles, where you lose a couple games, you just won a Super Bowl, and then you are just an avalanche of time to bench Jalen Hurts, time to start Tanner McKee, right? Like, it's just wild. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about the idea of moving on from Jalen Hurts, sending him to the Indianapolis Colts and Shane Steichen, and giving Tanner McKee that shot? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me. Either way, let's get in some discussions. Let's get in some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all generally feel connected to. Something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.